Welcome to Game Changers Live. My name is Sergio Tigera. I'm your host, and we're coming to you every Tuesday, as we always do, live from Miami, Florida. And we always have special guests on who have been game changers in their field, in their area, people who have impacted thousands of lives and are inspiring others to do the same. My guest today is Javi Perez out of Miami, Florida. And Javi Perez is owner of Modern Med Center here in Miami-Dade County. And his story is absolutely incredible. If you're not from South Florida, we're going to be talking about this a bit more so you can get inspired today. The Javi's story is incredible. But even more incredible is the way he's been able to bounce back from a life-changing tragedy. So in April 2016, Javi, who was a South Dade High School principal, was cheering his son among the other players at their T-ball game at Tamiami Park, a local park here in Miami. And this normal afternoon really turned nightmarish within moments as a drunken driver plowed her SUV onto the field. As he shielded others, he was hit directly and pinned beneath the vehicle. So despite quick action by an off-duty police officer applying tourniquets by his bleeding legs and transport to the hospital, the outcome was far from certain. So his wife, Maytee, family and friends prayed for his life as the medical teams did everything they could. Intense surgeries, 100 blood transfusions, and an induced medical coma followed with the news about being unable to save his legs. The literal and figurative crippling reality was met with a determination to make his way back. So family, faith, and support of the community, combined with his willingness to endure thousands of hours of physical therapy and constant meetings and treatments with many specialists. He spent 2 months in intensive care, then another 2.5 in rehabilitation. So in adapting to prosthetic limbs, right side below the knee and left above, he was essentially be in physical therapy for the rest of his life. With as many as 6 sessions a day scheduled, he was often sapped of energy. He says there were times I didn't want to do it, but a little voice inside me told me I couldn't let all the people down, all my family, friends, members of the community. So I have here live with me, buddy, Javi. Great to see you, my friend.
Sergio, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Great introduction there. It was awesome. Thanks.
No, absolutely, man. You're an inspiration to me and to many others here in South Florida and around the country with your story, because it's absolutely inspiring. And we don't know what we face, like what are the demons that we could potentially face when things like this happen to us, right? Nobody is really prepared. They think they know, but until things happen, you never really know what it's going to be like. So take me back, if you could, to that time when you're out there on a regular day playing with your son T-ball, and what caught your attention when that suddenly happened?
Well, it was actually a pretty interesting day due to the fact that my son's t-ball team was playing in the championship game of their season that day. So I spent the day at work pretty excited. Actually, the guy that does our trophies, even I remember all this. I mean, like if it was yesterday,
Yeah.
brought the box of trophies to my office that day at South Dade High School, so that I could take them to the game afterwards and pass them out to the kids for both teams, first place and second place trophies. He brought, and usually after work, 3 to 4 times a week, I used to go on a run with two of my colleagues at work. And that day, sure enough, right as soon as we got all the kids home, everybody on the buses, we went on a 3.5 mile run. And I was pretty pumped up that day. I could tell you that the two guys that I ran with were pretty. One of them was pretty much an elite runner, and that day, for the first time, I beat him. And we used to do about 30 miles a week, different runs. I ran probably about 30 half marathons. I did complete one full marathon, so I was an avid runner at the time. And so that day I was pretty pumped up. I went back to the school. I took a shower, changed, and headed out to the game. When I got to the game, my wife and daughter were waiting for me there. And the game started, pretty pumped up. Again, 6, 7-year-olds playing in a t-ball game. And halfway through the game, it was pretty amazing where on the other side of the fence, that leads to, if you're familiar with the area, obviously that leads to 117th Avenue, right next to the dumpster. A gentleman who I know very well, an older gentleman, for whatever reason, he was driving by the park. He saw the game going on. He recognized a couple of us. He pulled over on the other side of the fence, got off his car. So he called my attention. I went over to the fence and I started speaking to him. And probably about 5 minutes into our conversation, my son's team was up to bat. And I tell you, man, life is amazing, and the Lord, is always watching for us, because my son was the last out of the inning, and never before in the year and a half he had been playing t-ball had he ever, cried or complained or anything. So he's the last out of the inning. He grounds out, and he starts pouting and crying. So I'm gonna head over to walk towards him, towards the bench where he was at, and his head coach raises his hand and tells me, "Hey, Hob, don't worry about it. I'm gonna speak to Jordan. I got him." Again, 5-year-olds. The inning starts. No right fielder on the field, which is where my son was playing that day. So we start the inning, and
So your son was sitting on the bench, kind
talking
of,
to his coach.
yeah, depressed that he's.
Correct.
Wow.
About, the coach was explaining to him why it was okay, why he shouldn't cry, and all those things.
And in the meantime, you're out in right field talking to the gentleman across the fence.
Correct. And we don't have a right fielder
Yeah.
because my son was in the bench. We had, enough players for, to make the team. And 2 minutes later, last thing I remember is looking up and out of the corner of my left eye, seeing a car coming towards us. I hit the fence as hard as I could. The gentleman was on the other side of the fence, and I could tell you he probably flew about 10 feet. That's how hard I hit the fence. I turn around, and there was a lady sitting right behind me on a concrete slab. I picked her up. She couldn't see me because she was facing the field. So I picked her up and I threw her out of the way, and that's the last thing I remember.
Wait a second. So you're inside on the field. You're kind of basically just talking to the guy on the fence. And where was this woman?
She was right behind me on the field, but she's facing the actual baseball
She's
bat.
okay. She's actually facing the field.
So
And
her
so
back is to me.
yeah, and then so as the car was coming, you helped move her out of the way?
Yes, I turned around as soon as I hit the fence. That I hit the gentleman for him to get out of the way. I picked her up, threw her out of the way, and that's all I remember.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Now,
It's
obviously, months later and years later, now it's been 4 years. I've gone back, and actually, there was someone at the field. Well, there was many people at the field that day, obviously, with their phones and taking video of the game. But somebody actually caught the
the
whole
incident happened.
incident till the moment of impact.
Oh my gosh.
So you hear, the screeching of the tires. You hear the car going through the fence, the sound, and then the phone goes dead. They threw it up in the air and they started running,
Right.
and you just hear, uh, you know, reckless noises in the
Yeah,
background.
yeah.
And basically, that was it as far as the video. But I have been able to go back and see it, and kind of in my
Piece
brain,
things together.
step by step what took place.
Wow. And so you wake up when? A month later?
I wake up a month later. So basically, at the field when the accident happens, there was a gentleman watching the game that's a police officer and had just been through special training and life saving stuff. So his first reaction is to cut a rope that was there with a knife and do a tourniquet on my left side. And basically, it saved my life, to be honest with you. After speaking to the paramedics and the doctors, they said that basically saved my life. My wife tells the paramedics when they arrive, we're going to Jackson, right? And they're going, no, we got to go to Kendall Regional. She's like, no, I want him to go to Jackson. And they tell her if we go to Jackson, he doesn't make it. So she goes, okay, let's go Kendall Regional, which was, maybe a mile
Right.
away or less.
Sure.
So that's where they ended up taking me. Um, According to my wife, the people that were there that night, it was about 16 hours that they worked on me that night. When I arrived, it was a change of shifts, so it was early evening, And a lot of the doctors and nurses stayed behind because they heard on the radio the type of call that was coming in.
Mhm.
They gave me a 0% chance of
Oh my
surviving.
god.
So realistically, I could tell you that one of the professionals that was at the hospital that day, one of the anesthesiologists, he actually played baseball for me. So he heard of
Okay.
the person coming in, and right away, he put two and two together, and they gave him the option of not working on me, but he said absolutely not. This is something I want to do. And about 12 hours, I think, they worked on me that first night. It was under over 120 pints of blood that they had to
Oh my
give me.
gosh.
And they said it was internal bleeding. They just didn't know what it was. It was constant. They would give me, the transfusion and just continue. It was continuous.
Unbelievable.
Um, so they basically came out and they told my wife I wasn't going to make it through the night. So they brought in a priest. The family prayed. By this time, my wife says it was probably about 400 people at the hospital,
Oh my gosh.
which is unbelievable. She said it was a extremely emotional, hectic. Everybody obviously wanting
Yeah.
to know things, and you're talking about people from all walks of life, people that I grew up with, people that I worked with, people that I played
Sure.
baseball with growing up, people that are colleagues of mine throughout the years that I've spent down here working in the school system. So the next morning, they tell her, we've been able to stabilize them, and we feel we're in a good place right now.
Yeah.
On day three, they tell my wife that the legs weren't going to make it. That if they didn't amputate, I basically wouldn't make it past a week because of the infections that I had and the different circumstances. So
Sure.
on day three, they took me in and they amputated my right side below the knee and my left side above the knee. So again, move forward a month later,
Oh,
and throughout this month, they would wake me up a couple times during the day, and they would basically put me back to sleep for the pain and things like that. But I don't remember when they
yeah,
would wake
waking
me
up.
up, right? And I don't remember what was going on when they did. Um, right around 28 to 30 days, I finally is my first memory of waking up, and my wife is sitting by my side right when I wake up, and it's crazy, but the first thing I say to her is that, hey, did you call my boss and tell him I wasn't going to work?
Oh my
Kind of
god.
like our brains are programmed sometimes,
You
for
feel like you
things
just
that
woke up after a couple hours or whatever.
exactly,
Yeah.
and I was thinking the accident happened the night before or a couple hours before. And here I was. So the more she asked me a few questions, I was a little disoriented, and she realized that I didn't know what was going on. So she had to explain to me that, I had been there for about a month already, that
And did you realize that they had already amputated?
no, no,
Oh my gosh.
no. So by this time, I think I had around 12 to 15 surgeries. I mean, I'm up to like 26, but by this time, it was like 12
Wow.
or 15. And so she starts explaining all these things to me. And when she realized that, I was not aware that my legs had been amputated, because at one point I tell her, listen, can you tell the nurses to come in because there's something wrong with the bed? So I felt that there was a hole at the end of the bed and my legs were dangling down. And I had
Oh
a
my god.
tremendous amount of pain. I mean, the pain was unbelievable, and my toes hurt, my ankles. Obviously, I didn't have any, but
Yeah.
I later on found out, and they explained to me that amputees go through what they call phantom pain.
Right.
So
Right.
basically, phantom pain, even today, doesn't happen as often. But right now, I can tell you, I'm moving my toes. Our nerve
Yeah.
endings are still there. They cut your limbs, but your nerve endings are still there. They're still sending messages to your brain, and your brain is, processing
Interpreting
all
that,
that
right?
stuff. So right now, I'm actually moving my toes, and it's I kind of play games with my kids with it now, but at the
Right.
moment I felt that I was just in pain and my toes hurt, my ankles hurt. And so that's when my wife realized that I wasn't aware. So that evening, the one thing that at the hospital throughout the whole time, even when I was out, she says the amount of visitors, didn't stop. And my wife was the type of person that she felt that that was good for me because I was very friendly. I'm a people person, and she
Yeah.
felt that even me not knowing what was going on, that having people around and talking would help.
Yeah, it would just kinda help the mental state and,
Correct.
seeing all the support.
So that evening, when everybody left the room, she told me that to save my life, she had to make the decision that my legs had to be amputated. So obviously, I was destroyed, and
You probably you couldn't believe what
I
she was telling you, right? I mean, you had to see for yourself
I
and
mean, I really couldn't because I was strapped up, but
oh,
I started realizing maybe that's why I feel that there's a hole in the bed,
right.
things like that. And I would say for about 4 hours. And this was throughout the night. You're talking maybe 10 o'clock at night till 2, 3 in the morning. There was anger. There was, you feel sorry for yourself. There was,
The
pain.
question,
There
"Why
was
me?"
hate. There was why me? A lot of questions, but
Especially you're such an avid runner. You were just running earlier in the day,
that
so
saved
to
my
speak,
life.
right? And
That saved my life. They told me that the doctor said that I was the first person to come in with those types of injuries and make it. That nobody had that they had ever come to the hospital with the type of injuries that I had ever been able to make it. And they believe that that's the reason because the oxygen level that I had in my system was so much from running that it truly saved my life.
wow.
So about 3 in the morning, I say to myself, at the end of the day, I'm here, which is the important thing. Whether I have
Made it.
my limbs or not, my mind seems to be in a decent place. It's not in a great place right now, but it seems to be in a decent
Sure,
place.
considering the circumstances.
Correct. And the amount of medication that I was under as well. I was taking about 15 pills or a day.
Yeah.
So my kids are going to have a father. My wife is going to have a husband. My parents are going to have their son. My siblings are going to have their brother. So right now, I need to suck it up, and I need to do what's best for me to get better. Sergio, I can tell you that from that moment on, man, the only thing on my mind was I have to make a recovery to as close as before as possible. I need to do this. And the next day I said, when do I start therapy? Obviously, I couldn't do therapy at the time.
Sure, sure, but in your mind
I had all kinds of things. But you know what? They said, you know what? This is what he wants. And they started bringing people over. And I have a couple metal plates in my forearm, my fingers, um, my neck, and in the back. So they just started, moving my fingers around, which I couldn't move at the time, and doing little things like that to entertain me and to get me started. A couple weeks later, they taught me how to sit up. So throughout this whole time, I'm not going to tell you that it was easy because it wasn't. And every night, when you were by yourself and you thought different different memories and different things would come into your mind, and you had to snap out of it. So you
yeah,
allow yourself to fall into that trap for a small period of time. But listen, we all go through that, and I've been through that before my accident, where whatever it is we're dealing with in life, at work, with our kids, with our family, with a colleague, whatever it is, with a neighbor, we go through those little moments in time where our kind of mind wanders and we think about something negative. But
yeah.
I think we need to be strong enough where we need to remind ourselves, hey, move forward, erase that, and let's continue.
So you had a moment there in the hospital that you said that was really the inflection point, that vector point,
Correct.
where you had a choice. And at the end of the day, even, without legs, without everything that's happened to you, you came to the realization, I have a choice. And you weighed out all the pros. and versus the cons and all the people who depended on you, all the
choices were
support you
simple,
had.
man. The choices were simple: lay here and die, or kick some ass and make it happen. That's about it. That at least that's what I put in my
Love
mind.
that. Love that. Love that. And so no matter how bad the situation is, you always have a choice to decide to see the positive and what you can make it out of this.
There's always a choice in everything in life, and you know what? I can't tell you that my accident is worse than something that you've been through in your life or the next person, because you could say, "Oh man, this guy, Javi lost his legs," but that doesn't matter because a headache could put you in bed for 3 days if you're not
Right.
mentally.
Mm.
A family issue, a divorce, complain, anything, could really play with your mind and with your psyche, and you might not be able to come out of it.
Even just depression, you could be
Correct.
in that spiral for years and
Correct.
years, right?
But Sergio, I owe all that I feel to growing up playing sports. I think
Really?
that's the all for everybody, especially a sport like baseball that I grew up playing. And you played baseball yourself.
Yeah.
And you're going to be, when I tell you this, I'm sure you know it, but it's just going to bring you to a place where you're going to realize, yeah, he's absolutely correct. So in every sport, we at a young age we learn how to deal with failure. But
Right.
no sport do we learn how to deal with failure more than in baseball.
That's right. You're failing all the time.
Because 290 hitter, you're only successful 29% of the time, but in a 15-year career in the big leagues, you're a Hall of
Hall
Famer,
of Famer. That's right.
and you failed 80% of the time. So
Yeah.
realistically, playing a sport like baseball, I think, teaches you that mental toughness, that I'm going to get over this, that it's not going to put me down, it's not going to stop me, especially when you're not a superstar like I wasn't. So
Mhm.
you have to deal with it even at a larger level. And everything I've done in life, I owe to baseball, to be honest with you. The type of father I am, the type of husband, the type of employee, the type of neighbor, the type of friend, I learned, obviously my parents gave me an upbringing, but it all came together through playing the sport of baseball.
Right, because you develop a certain level of grit, of tenacity, of all right, I got, I struck out, something negative happened. All right, how am I gonna correct this the next time? How am I gonna move forward and
Right.
get a hit? And how am I gonna get turn
Because
this
you
around
could strike out 3 times in a game, but that fourth time you could come up with two guys on or bases loaded
and
with
win the game?
to win a
Right.
game.
That's right.
And if you're not mentally tough, you're going to go up there defeated. And
So
there
on,
was no way that I was going to be defeated after this.
yeah, and so to that point, a lot of baseball players, some of the best, are credited with having short-term memories.
Correct.
Because you can't just dwell on the past and what happened. What happened, just happened, right? You can't get past that. So the only thing you can affect is what's coming up in front of you. And so you made
Absolutely.
that choice to
A
to
question
move
that's
on.
always asked, to me, and really, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't. It really, it's a non-issue. But a lot of people always ask, hey, what about the person that hit you? The lady. I said, you know what? I really don't know, and I really don't care because realistically, I have no hate towards the person. Obviously, they were sick, they were going through something. As long as they get help, but me dwelling on the negative of what happened to me is not going to get me better. So I need to put that aside. I need to delete it, like you say, and I need
Mhm.
to, reboot my brain.
Yeah. Focus on what you can control.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Excellent. So then at that point, so I'm on with Javi Perez here live from Miami, Florida on Game Changers. We're talking about his story of surviving this horrific accident, but more than anything, I want to highlight is his mental attitude and toughness to not only get past what he's gone through, but then strive and thrive in this new world, right? So how has your perspective changed now so that you started to move forward, you started getting physical therapy. You started to see improvements. What was the biggest change, pre Javi and post Javi of the accident in terms of, was it more of, thankfulness in terms of,
Without a doubt. But
Mhm.
I've also, and not that I've gotten closer to the Lord. Uh, Not that I wasn't before, but definitely, there's a lot more belief in me when it comes
All
to
right.
my faith, without a doubt. But more importantly, man, in love with this community, to be honest with you, because the support that I received, the amount of get well cards, you're talking about kids that were my students. My school was about 30 miles from the hospital where I was at. Kids were sneaking out at night from their homes and sneaking into the hospital to go see me. And
Wow.
these are kids that maybe had gotten in trouble at school with me, that I had, somehow had conversations in a negative light with them. You know, most of those kids showed up to the hospital, man. They found a way to reach out to me and come and see me and wish me well. And that just, that tells you that in life we hear a lot of constant negative things on the news, on the radio, on the newspaper. You read or you see it, because those are the things that unfortunately as humans we're attracted to. That's
Hmm.
what sells, and the drama. But realistically, when I was in the hospital, I would always say, man, imagine a show, a program of only positive things, of only things that are good. A lot of people, oh, it won't make any money. Oh, but it'd be beautiful. People imagine, people, the stories that they would have to tell. And I think, and those were the things that I thought about. I couldn't read at the time because I just couldn't concentrate on reading. I had to learn how to write again. I couldn't write either. So my wife would read books to me every night. And I would just lay in bed and listen. And she would read chapter after chapter, and I would listen, and it would bring peacefulness to me. And those are some of the things that I thought about at the time. And then, we have our ups and downs.
Sure.
And at one point, I was doing extremely well. A doctor walks to my room and tells me, my wife and I were talking about prosthetics. I wasn't close to that stage yet, but obviously, right away, you start thinking, man, imagine when I could walk again. And the doctor hears me and says, "Oh, you're never going to be able to walk. You had crushing injuries, and you know you're not a candidate for prosthetics." Man, my wife, you have no idea. I mean, she ripped him to the point where I thought she was going to hit him. But me, at that point, I wasn't as tough as she was, and it kind of put me in a black hole. So I went under again,
Sure.
and it shut me down. It shut me down completely, and I was like, Jesus, man. Here's a doctor, a surgeon actually, who had worked, saved my life basically. This guy's telling me this. So for the next 2 or 3 days, I was bad. I was in a bad spot.
But was he also the one that told your wife that you weren't going to make it?
He That was part of his team. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Magnificent doctor, to be honest with you, as far as the medicine side. But maybe his people skills aren't too good,
Yeah.
when
Exactly.
it comes to talking to people.
Yeah.
So my
It
wife
didn't
right away,
inspire the belief in you that you can actually
correct.
do it, right? And you kind of bought into that and you said, well, if he says it, he's the doctor. He knows what he's talking about. I'm done.
And Sergio, my whole life till that point, whatever a doctor said, at least I grew up that way. And my parents raised me that way. It's like when I was at school, what the teacher said,
Sure.
the teacher
That
was
was
the teacher,
gospel.
the adult, gospel, exactly. So whatever the doctor said, hey, that's the law and that's what you follow. I realized that that's not the case, during what I went through. But my wife that night after that happens, she calls my prosthetist, who actually we had only met one. Well, I was still out, but she had met him once. And she was introduced to him by a friend of mine who knows him, who grew up with him. He's a local person from here. And you know what? That guy in the middle of the night, man, without really knowing us, he had spoken to my wife once, and we had a friend in common. He showed up to the hospital about midnight to talk to me. And his words exact to me were, Hav, if you want to do this, you're going to do it. The doctor saved your life. He knows about medicine, but he doesn't know shit about what I know. And I know that if you have it here in your heart and here, you're going to do this. And I'm going to do it with you. And I said, that's all I need to hear. once again,
Done.
we
Yeah.
started, on the rise, So again, in life, we go through ups and downs, and the key is the downs got to be short term,
Yep.
because when we allow the downs to be long term, we fall into a trap, and when it's too deep, we can't come out of it.
And we got to control the inputs as well, right? Because you bought into that other doctor, what he was saying, and as soon as this guy gave you that validation, boom, you lit up again.
But I had an angel next to me, my wife, who wasn't going to put up
Right.
with that, because if she's not there, or if she's someone that would have felt like I felt, and that was the gospel, we would have both of us fell into that trap.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. So then you got the prosthetic legs. You started to walk again. You started to see that progress. I mean, you even drive now. That's another thing they told you, right? That you wouldn't be able to do.
Correct. So it took me about a year to get the prosthetics. So I got my license actually right around the 10-month mark. And Sergio, I can tell you, we take things for granted in life, man. The little things, especially, because we're always thinking of, the major things, how we're going to break out in our businesses and our, in our endeavors, whatever it is we're doing. But the little things are the ones that play the most impact, that have the most impact on us and play a bigger part in our lives. And we don't realize those things. When you're 16, I could remember, getting my license. It was I couldn't be more excited. I'm sure everybody's the same way.
Sure.
So now here I am. I was around 35 at the time. Till I didn't get my license, I didn't feel I had freedom, because I had to depend on someone to take me somewhere, even to get a cup of coffee if I wanted a cup of coffee. So the day that I got my license, I knew that I was going to make it, as far as mentally, that there was no guaranteed 100%. Now nothing could stop me.
That was a checkpoint for you. Again, you crossed another one.
Correct. And that was one thing I did at the beginning was, I set goals for myself, but I didn't set crazy goals. The ultimate goal was to walk again, but I set goals within 2-week periods. So one of my first goals was being able to sit in bed. And you know what? This week, all I'm going to concentrate is sitting up in bed, because I couldn't do it. So for a week, hours a day, I practiced to sit up in bed.
Jeez.
And 3 days later, I was able to do it.
Something
Now,
so simple that nobody would ever think about.
nobody.
Oh, I'm going to practice to sit up in bed.
Absolutely.
I
I
mean,
mean,
we take that for granted, right?
it's crazy, man. It's
Unbelievable.
crazy, because, the brain learns how to do things at a young age, and then it's automatic. It's just instilled in us, and we
Mhm.
just do it without even thinking about it. When
Habits.
it's taken away from us, is when we really, realize how important those little things, those small things are.
Sure. So, and then you started, driving again, walking, going back to work. That was another checkpoint where you really,
Huge
felt
checkpoint.
powerful.
Huge checkpoint. So, um, while I was in the hospital, and I leave Kendall Regional, and they move me to Baptist to do rehab. So for another 2.5 months, I was at Baptist. So when I got to Baptist, it was therapy 6 days a week, about 7 hours a day, 2 shifts. Morning shift, about 3.5 hours, break for about 2 hours, and in the middle of the day, and then afternoon to early evening shift for
Wow.
another 3.5, 4 hours. Every type of therapy you could think of. And I would do it 6 days a week, because I would take the extra day, because it kept me entertained, and I saw the progress. So it motivated me to
Sure.
keep doing it. I'd rather do that than lay in a bed in a hospital room and, just watch TV, which I really couldn't concentrate to do. So when I first get there, though, I wanted to do it, but I didn't have the energy to do anything. I just couldn't. I couldn't. And I would tell my wife, I want to do it. Believe me, it's not an excuse. I just raising my hands, got me tired. So my best friend and my wife tell my doctor, listen, he's been through a lot the last 3 months. Why don't you guys check his testosterone? He's 45, 46 years old. I think I was 45 at the time, 46. Because definitely there's something that's not right
You should
because
have more energy.
yes, and it's not normal because I can understand being tired because of what I went through, but I was at a totally
Exhausted.
different level.
Right.
So the doctor again tells my wife, this is obviously a different doctor at a different hospital. Oh, what do you know about testosterone or anything like that? I'm the doctor here, and he's here for amputations. Um, so we're not going to do that. So my wife said, okay. The next day she tried again. And she basically told him, if you don't agree to it, I'm going to bring it from the house, wherever I find it, and I'm going to give him some because I feel he needs it.
Sure.
So that was that afternoon. That evening, at night, I would have family therapy. Basically, I would sit in a room. It was great. Play cards, ping pong, tell jokes, and then my friends were allowed to come over at this time. And it was kind of like family therapy, kind of getting back into society, that type of thing.
Sure.
They would even take me on a field trip once a week, which was fantastic. So, but that night, a female doctor comes to see me. We had never seen her before. And she was doing her rounds and she just came to check up on me and see what we were doing. My wife pulls her to the side and tells her the same thing she told that morning the doctor. She tells this doctor. And the lady says, you know what? That's a great idea. It's not going to hurt to check because
Sure.
if what you're telling me is true, we should check. The next day they did a test. I know nothing. Well, I knew nothing at the time about testosterone, about any of that stuff.
Hmm.
So, just to give you an idea, a man, a male at my age, and I was 45, 46 at the time, our levels, there's a scale where it could be anywhere from 300 to 1100,
Sure.
which is a big scale to start off with, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, my levels were three, the number
Three.
three. They tested me 4 times because
Oh,
they said it was impossible that they never seen this. Um, I wasn't even a female at the time. It was like non-existent, when it comes to
yeah.
our body.
Nothing.
So they decide that they're going to give me a shot once every 2 weeks. They started off very mild, once every 2 weeks, but right away they saw the progress and they saw mostly my attitude change as far as constantly wanting to work,
Hmm.
constantly being positive. And at this time, I told my wife, you know what? I want you to start reading to me about testosterone therapy, of what I'm taking, what my body's going through, because I want to learn about it as much as possible. So again, at night, she would spend all night reading to me.
Wow.
And about a week into it or whatever, I told her, you know what? When this is all done, I'm going to open up a center for people that need testosterone therapy, for people that need physical therapy, which I'm going to need for the rest of my life. And we're going to help people that aren't aware of the deficiencies that they have in their body, and we're gonna help them be optimal. And my wife would look at me and smile and say, "Oh, honey, that's great. I'm so glad you're entertained. This is a great idea."
Didn't think you were serious.
But I told her, "No, I'm going to do this. I'm definitely going to do this." And then my best friend walks in a couple days later, and I tell him the idea, and he goes, "You know what? That is a fantastic idea." And he's in the medical field. He owned pharmacies, different medical centers. So he goes, that is a fantastic idea. We're going to do this together. So we start talking about it and we start planning. And my attorney walks in one day, and his exact words to me were, "What are you crazy Cubans talking about?" So you know, we tell him the idea, and he goes, "You know what? I've never I've never heard of anything like that. I love it. Count me in." Between us three, we formed a partnership, and that's how we started our medical center that we've been open now for 10 months.
Oh, wow. Fantastic, man. What a story. What a story. And so where is it located? It's in Dadeland?
We're in downtown Dayland, 8950 Southwest 74th Court in the Town Center 1 building.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. And then so if you're interested in any of that, make sure to look them up there, Modern Med Center in Dadeland. Javi, what as we start wrapping up here, because it's been an unbelievable story. So if you had to give a piece of advice to someone from everything that you've gone through, right? What would that be? What's the essential lesson, game-changing lesson that you've had?
The human body is amazing. Anytime we say we can't do anything, it's just an excuse that we're using not to accomplish something, not to do a task, not to do whatever it is that we're lying to ourselves, kind of convincing ourselves that we cannot do it. But I am living proof that there is nothing greater than the human body and the brain. And anything that we set ourselves to accomplish, as long as we give it our full and we really try, there's nothing that we can't do. I mean, I guarantee you there's nothing that we cannot do. Nothing.
Well, Javi, buddy, you've been an inspiration to me and everyone else listening out here. Hope that story was inspiring to everybody out there, and you've taken a lot from it, in terms of gratitude, in terms of mindset, resilience, even the importance of sports, and in terms of our mental attitude and how we face setbacks, right? That eventually come to us. So you can find them at Javi Strong. Where else can they reach out to you, buddy?
Hey, modernmedcenters.com.
Fantastic. Modernmedcenters.com. You want to check them out there. And again, we do this every Tuesday on Game Changers Live here from Miami, Florida. Make sure to check us out and follow us on Gamechangerslive.co, as well as the YouTube channel at getgamechangerslive.co. All right, my friend, thank you very much for being on, and we're looking forward to checking you out here soon.
Thank you, Sergio.
All right, take care, guys.